Rawson Twitchell runs inside. Rawson Twitchell into the second level, the 10, the 5, touchdown Butte County.
It's time for another weekend of high school football in Idaho, and it's time for another edition of Gem State Game Day.
Simmons to throw. Going deep down the field. He's got a man isolated. Did he catch it? He did. Yeah. In traffic. What a grab by Guy Wheeler.
Before you head out tonight to cheer on your favorite team, get caught up on the latest news, notes, and previews from this weekend's Gridiron action.
Here's the snap, and it's intercepted at the 10-yard line. That's Bodie Brackenberry. Jackalow sniffed it out.
Gem State Game Day is brought to you by Valleywide Cooperative, Project Filter, and the Idaho Transportation Department.
This one's going to go all the way, 70 yards, no flag, touchdown Valley View. Austin Belknap, 70 yards to the house. Buckle up, here we go.
Yes, that's right. Welcome into the debut episode of Gem State Game Day here on IdahoSports.com. Every Thursday morning, we'll be hopping on to preview the biggest action and headlines from the high school football landscape here in the great state of Idaho. My name is Brandon Baney. Our panel of experts today, Logan Green, our host of the Treasure Valley Prepcast over there in the Boise Valley, and also Ryan Scaggs, our host from the North Idaho Prepcast up north. Logan and Ryan, thanks for hopping on, guys. We appreciate it.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, it should be fun. It's like it's our version of college game day, right? We're not we do need to, maybe we can evolve this and sit outside and have everybody behind us, right? Like a college game. All three of our fans can stand behind us.
We'll just host it in Bonner's Ferry every week since they like to turn out for stuff that we do.
That would be fun.
You can't go wrong with Bonner's Ferry, that's for sure. So we're going to get to all the big headlines for the upcoming week. But moving forward, we'll start every show with a look back at last week's headlines. We'll give you kind of the big bullet point takeaways from the previous week that was. Now, since this is week one of the high school football season, we don't have any headlines to look back at. So instead of last week's headlines, let's take a look at last year's headlines. And there were certainly some incredible stories that happened on and off the gridiron in the 2023 season. I think the first one is Butte County wins their first title in school history. Logan, you were on the call for that incredible moment.
Yeah, no, what a great season Butte County had last year. Just super fun to be a part of it. I feel like I got lucky enough to be on multiple of their state tournament calls.
And then Highland and Bishop Kelly won a pair of all-time classic championship games. Highland won a shootout over Coeur d'Alene. Bishop Kelly beat Hillcrest when Hillcrest missed a field goal as time expired. And then the class of 24, it was at the very end there, they sent 7 players on to the Division I FBS level, headlined by Gatlin Bear, of course, from Burley, the electric wide receiver who's not Oregon, and also Rakeem Johnson, offensive guard from Bishop Kelly, that is now at Michigan State. So class of 24 certainly set the bar high. We're going to talk to a member of the class of 25 coming up on the show, Zeke Martinez, senior quarterback from Meridian High School. And we also have a coach's interview, Logan, coming up with Sam Thorngren entering his 19th season at Butte County High School. We want to bring you a player and a coach interview every week here on Gem State Game Day as well. So let's get into it. We've got a busy schedule of games. You know, it's week one and not everybody is playing. We used to call it week 0, and then we were told there actually is no such thing as week 0. So this is week 1, and we will break down not only the games that are on the schedule for week 1, but we'll give you kind of a quasi-season preview for each classification as well. And we will do that right after this break, starting with the big dogs, classes 6A and 5A. So stay tuned for that. It's right after this. You're watching Gem State Game Day on IdahoSports.com.
We're a valley-wide country store. For 100 years, we've been your #1 choice for food, fuel, farm supplies, and just about everything else you could need to get you through your day. We know you work until the job is done, and so do we. For gas on the go or a little extra to help you get down the road, you can count on us. We are proud to employ your neighbors and to be a cornerstone of your community. We're valley-wide. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow. We're here for you.
Welcome back to Gem State Game Day here on IdahoSports.com. Very pleased to be joined now by one of the most prolific quarterbacks we've seen in some time in the state of Idaho, entering his 4th season with the Meridian High Warriors, Zeke Martinez. Zeke, thanks for joining us.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
Does it feel like it's your senior year? I mean, I feel like you've been around for so long, all the way back to your freshman year. Has it hit you yet that this is your final ride with the yellow and blue of Meridian High?
Yeah, it is kind of crazy. I mean, I was talking about with my friends the other day, man. I feel like freshman year was just here, and now I'm a senior, so it's pretty crazy how time flies like that. But I'm just so blessed to be able to play this game one more year with my guys. So I'm excited. This is gonna be a fun year.
Yeah, it's a career where you were basically thrown into the fire very early on. Your big brother Malachi unfortunately got injured during his senior season. They turned to you as a young freshman. How have you continued to improve from that point to where you are now as one of the best quarterbacks in the state of Idaho in your senior year?
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely blessed to get that opportunity to play as a freshman on varsity. Just to get that much experience helped me so much just in my later years. So I definitely feel like I've been experienced a lot more than maybe other people have. And I've been just, do my trainings over the years and getting as much work in as I can from just my peers and the people around me and just learning from my coaches. They've been pouring into me so much. So I've been blessed to have just a good support system around me. And I've been growing at a good pace. So I'm excited to show what I got this year. I'm excited for our team to show what we got. I think it's going to be a great year.
Yeah, we'll get to your teammates in just 1 second. One last question about you, and then we'll turn to some of the guys that you're playing with. How has the recruiting process been going for you as you enter your senior season?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's kind of different, especially just I haven't really experienced anything as much as this. A lot of coaches reaching out. So it's been definitely a cool process just to be a part of, just definitely being grateful for what I have. A lot of people I hear it's pretty stressful, but for me, it's been really exciting. I would say I'm just so blessed to be in the position that I am. God's put me in this position on purpose. So I'm just taking every opportunity that I get. So I'm having fun with it. It's been a real good summer.
I love that mentality and how you're leaning into that for sure. So tell us a little bit about Meridian High football. We know you guys like to run the football. You've got multiple running backs that can do damage. What can fans expect from Meridian High on offense this year?
Yeah, I think the fans just can expect another great year. We're going to put on a show, but definitely not looking too far ahead. We're taking it one game at a time, but we've been working really hard this summer. Got a couple new coaches on staff, so I'm excited to just see how our team just comes closer and coming till our first game, because we've been doing tons of things this summer, and we're really excited to show what we got. It's been a fun summer as a team. We've been doing a lot of team bonding, just getting more as a family. And I feel like we really have come closer to each other. So it's going to be a great year.
Yeah. A quarterback will only go as far as his offensive line takes him. This is your opportunity to give your big guys up front a little love. Who's going to be paved with protecting you this year?
Man, I'd say my whole entire line. I was literally talking about it earlier today with the guys. Like, I can't do anything without our line. So I'm just so blessed that they're there just to protect me on every single play. Starting off with, my left tackle all the way to my right tackle. I'm just so happy that those guys are there doing the hard work that a lot of people, kind of goes unnoticed. Not a lot of people see the O-line and how much they do. But once you are in the quarterback position, you kind of see how much you need them. So they're definitely the dogs on the team. So I love to have them.
Yeah, no doubt. So you guys opened the season with Eagle, appropriate enough. The schedule makers had a doozy right out of the gates. You played Eagle twice last year. You fall 36-33 in a shootout in the regular season. Then in the SIC championship game by a single point, 22-21. How motivated are you and your teammates to get back out there against what's going to be a really good Eagle team once again?
Yeah, we're definitely ready to go. I mean, Eagle is a great team every single year. They're one of the matchups that we look forward to every year. Just great guys over there that just give us a great competition every time we play them. So it's going to be an exciting year to play them again because they got some good guys coming back, and we also have some guys coming back as well. So I think it will be we'll put on a show for the fans watching for sure, both of us.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun game for sure. Okay, last question. What are the team goals that Coach Zamberlin and the coaching staff have set for you guys this year at Meridian?
Yeah, so this year we've really been stressing on not looking too far ahead. That's something we're not focusing on right now. We're definitely looking at the next game, and then once we do that, the next game after that. So we're taking it one step at a time, and the coach has really been harping on that all season. So all the guys are pretty much thinking the same thing. Like, we're just taking it one day at a time. Once practice is over, we're looking forward to the next one. Either it was the best practice or the worst practice. We're always looking ahead to the next one. So, I mean, there's going to be mess ups in the game. Whatever it is, we got to learn to get past those and look forward to the next play. So that's kind of been our mindset this entire summer.
It's that baseball mentality. You got to always look ahead to what's next. Lots of opportunities for sure. Okay. I like it. That's a good mantra. One practice at a time, not even one game at a time. One practice.
One step at a time. Yes, sir.
All right. Zeke Martinez, senior quarterback for Meridian High this fall. Best of luck to you and your teammates. It's going to be fun to watch you guys compete again in what's going to be a really tough conference. And best of luck to you personally as well. It's been really fun to watch you over these past 3.5 seasons.
Appreciate you. That means a lot. I mean, it's just cool just to see where I've become just from just a young age, just being where I'm at now. I'm so blessed to be here. So thank you for letting me do this. It's always good talking with you.
Big thanks to Zeke Martinez from Meridian High School joining us here on Gem State GameDay. And so Meridian has been one of the premier powers in the 6A ranks. They were not picked to win their division, though, in our preseason coaches polls that we conducted with every coach in the state of Idaho. So let's get to it, guys. Here are the preseason Class 6A favorites. You see Coeur d'Alene from the north there, Eagle and Rocky Mountain. They are in opposite pods, opposite divisions, the Foothills and the River Division, respectively. They won each of their pods last year. And then Rigby, of course, the big bad power from the east. Ryan, Coeur d'Alene got all the way to the state championship game a season ago, and they appear to be loaded for bear once again this year.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Coeur d'Alene and what they bring back. Obviously, I don't want to say there was a quarterback controversy last year, but if you look at things on, they started with a different QB to start the year, and they beat Rigby at University of Montana. Then they switched quarterbacks, go Caden Simmons, and ride the hand. I mean, the sophomore, he was awesome last year in his sophomore season, taking them all the way to the state championship game. But he's going to be back for his junior season, and he has got a full cupboard of receivers and weapons behind him on that offensive side of the football for the Vikings this year. I mean, I look at Coeur d'Alene, they're going to be a dangerous team offensively. And then everybody's like, well, they knew about Shea Robertson, who went on to play at Eastern Washington, and you had Camden DeGraw that went on to play Washington State. But you look at the other players that are left there on that defensive side of the ball, there's not much drop-off. I mean, you got some studs on the defensive side of the football for the Vikings, and they're not going to be slight on talent, that's for dang sure. You got guys like Jason Cady, Kai Wheeler, Parker Neff's going to be at their linebacker position. Anthony Browning is a guy to keep an eye on too, as senior. Played some spot duty at the linebacker position last year. He's going to be probably playing a lot this coming season at linebacker. He's a player in my mind to keep an eye on. He's had a great offseason. There's a lot of those kids, they've been in the weight room. They've been playing in Spokane, doing a lot of the player training with a couple of the groups over there. And, man, that team is going to be – in my mind, they're dangerous. I look at them. They could be a definite favorite to win the 6A state championship this year.
Yeah, and we remember that Coeur d'Alene, of course, got to the championship against Highland, but they had to beat previously undefeated Eagle in last year's semifinals, a game that Coeur d'Alene won 7-6, despite being outgained nearly 2-1 on offense. And so Eagle is a program that is motivated to get back and finish the job. Now, they did lose a lot to graduation. They lost some big linemen up front. They did say goodbye to Davis Harson, their senior quarterback. He's now at Idaho State University, but they bring back one of the best running backs in not just 6A, but the whole state of Idaho, Noah Burnham. Had to take over as a sophomore last year, rushed for over 1,000 yards for Eagle. And so Eagle is kind of the favorite in the River Division, Logan. But when we look at that Foothills Division, man, Rocky Mountain is there, Meridian is there, Middleton is there as well. That is going to be a tough top three.
Yeah, that I feel like the top of that side of the 6A SIC is stacked. In Middleton, has just been right there, just right underneath them for, the last couple of years, and maybe is still there again this year. We'll find out. They've been close in those games. It's funny. I was talking to somebody. Those are the only two teams they've lost to since they've moved up to 6A, is just Meridian and just Rocky Mountain. So if they can just get past those two, then, maybe we could talk more about them. But Rocky Mountain and Meridian last year played, that game really decides who wins the pod, right? Those two. Last year was 7-3. That was the final, with Rocky Mountain losing that game to Eagle. They want to wash that taste out of their mouth this year and get it done. It's been a couple of years since we've seen Rocky Mountain in the state championship. Obviously, they won it a couple of years ago back, and it was played at Madison High School. That's what you want for a state championship in Idaho, is playing it in Rexburg in late November, right? A nice, cold, brisk day over there. But hey, they got it done. But they bring back a lot of great players. They did lose some great players, and maybe Ryan, kind of what you were talking about with the quarterback situation for Coeur d'Alene. Maybe that's what we see this year out of Rocky Mountain, where they maybe try to figure it out. Maybe they lean on a younger guy coming in down the line. That's kind of the unknown, I think, right now with Rocky, is where that's going to be. But we know they're going to run the ball. We know they're going to run the ball extremely well. That's something I don't think anybody has a doubt on with the Grizzlies. They're going to play great defense. They're going to come out with that. So we'll see what happens through the air. They don't really, they don't have time to quote, I guess they do have time this year to figure it out. Their schedule, they'll start off with CUNA, maybe a team that was picked by the coaches a little bit lower in the schedule, so maybe some time to figure it out there. And then they play an out-of-state team. But then right after that, the Battle of the Mountains is coming in 2 short weeks after that. So they're going to have to figure it out. They have some time, but not a ton of time to get that cemented down before conference play kicks up.
Yeah, one thing I saw in Rocky Mountain last year, too, just to throw that, because I had that semifinal game, the quarterfinal game when they came up and played Coeur d'Alene. I mean, they played 3 quarterbacks in that football game, and all 3, and they were a little stagnant on the offensive side, but they brought in one of their younger kids that came in, and he spelled in the second half, and he actually brought them on a couple of really nice drives. I think that, but the talent around them is there. I mean, they have team speed on team speed. And that's a team that's going to be probably one to mess with down in the District 3 out of the Boise area. But, I look at it too, is that the conference, Meridian is a team that I think is getting slept on a little bit. I think they've got a lot of talent too. Everybody's talking about Eagle and Rocky, and, Mountain View is getting some mentions too. But I mean, you look at that Meridian team, I mean, they're always there. And that's the thing. I think that they're getting slighted just a little bit as far as attention goes coming out of the SIC.
Yeah, Rocky Mountain's got that upper end talent, you guys. 3 players ranked in the top 5 for recruiting in the class of 2025 in corner Caden Kimball-Turner, edge rusher Isaiah Reed, who has committed to Nevada, as well as safety Hayden Thompson. And if that weren't enough, they've got 3 juniors that are in the top 5 for the class of 26. Offensive tackle Jax Tanner, defensive end / defensive tackle Rowan Rupp, and tight end Drew Bird. So that is what's going on at Rocky Mountain. And then, of course, there's Big Bad Rigby. We'll put it back up on the screen here. There's the Rigby Trojans. So Coeur d'Alene, Eagle, Rocky, and Rigby are the 4 quote-unquote winners of our preseason coaches polls. If you want to see the full results, you can find them all at IdahoSports.com. We have them for every single league across the state and in every classification. Rigby guys, they're going to be good. They're going to be good again. They bring back Feki Puha, a 4-year starter at center, just a bedrock on the offensive line. He's going to be a phenomenal player, and really he'll anchor the attack for Rigby. Defensively, they bring back some like Parker Graham, who's kind of a hybrid safety linebacker. They bring back Gage Larson on the defensive line, Cannon Korth, who was an all-conference cornerback a season ago. The big question is, just like with Rocky Mountain, quarterback, right? Rocky, quote unquote, got a transfer. Well, not quote unquote. I was going to say they hit the portal, but they didn't. They got a transfer. Austin Rovig, who was Timberline's quarterback last year, transferred into Rocky Mountain. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to start. They might have a younger guy they like better. With Rigby, they got a fairly prominent transfer from Skyline, Amani Morrell, who put up nearly 1,500 yards all-purpose last year as a running back receiver for the Grizzlies. He's at Rigby. He's going to headline the backfield. And then at the quarterback position, yeah, they said goodbye to Luke Flowers. He's now at the University of Montana, third consecutive Rigby starting quarterback to go to the Division I level, specifically the Big Sky Conference. You had Keegan Thompson go to Idaho State, and then Tiger Adolfo go to Weber State, and now Luke Flowers go to Montana. Well, who steps in? It's Luke's younger brother, Jake Flowers. So I don't expect much of a drop-off at all with that quarterback position there in Rigby. So those are kind of the favorites, guys. Let's take a look at the week 1 schedule for the Class 6A ranks. It's fairly light. The schedule will be a little beefier as we get going down the line here, but it's basically 3 games, guys. So Ryan, I'll let you go first. I pick one of the games here you want to spotlight. I think I know which one it's going to be, but
yeah, the game I like spotlight. I mean, it's pretty obvious it's standing out. That Rigby Coeur d'Alene game up here in Coeur d'Alene is going to be a dandy of a ball game. That is going to be, that's got state championship type flavor. Week 1 again, 2 years in a row they've played each other in that opening week, and this one's going to be, I think, a classic. I mean, you look at how's the defense of Rigby match up with the offense of Coeur d'Alene. I think it's pretty close. I mean, I think the thing about Coeur d'Alene, though, I know that Coach Amos was really talking about was spreading the ball out a little bit more this year. Now that you've got Simmons back there at quarterback, he's going to be able to make some of those calls at the line of scrimmage and audible into some different stuff. And that's going to be really interesting to see how Coeur d'Alene shifts offensively. We've seen them really hang their hat on defense so much over the last few years. They're going to be an offensive stalwart this year. I really think that they're going to knock the doors off of a lot of teams just with their speed, especially on the perimeter. They are absolutely stacked at the slot middle receiver position. They got guys on the outside that can stretch the field too. They got a matchup nightmare in Kai Wheeler. That's going to be a really interesting game to see. And then I want to see how Flowers adjusts to being quarterback, starting, the 6A campaign, his junior year coming in, playing the team that, is fresh off of a loss in the state championship game in Coeur d'Alene. That's going to be a really interesting game.
Yeah, the previous 2 years they met at the University of Montana's Washington Grizzly Stadium in Missoula as a neutral site. Well, this year there's a Tyler Childers concert. He's a country music star, and so the Saturday they usually book it. Concert going on. Sorry. So Coeur d'Alene will host. Next year they'll go to Rigby, a true home and home. Logan, what game are you going to spotlight?
Brandon, obviously, you should have asked me first. That would have been a lot easier. That Rigby Coeur d'Alene game, I'll just give my extra 2 cents on it real quick. Just saw both teams play last year. Coeur d'Alene, I saw him in the state championship. It just was blown away with Simmons at quarterback. That kid's fun to watch, and so that's obviously going to be a great game for them, for both teams. Should be super fun to see that one. But I'll move down, or I'll move up on this list. Let's look at this Madison Bonneville game. This is a sneaky one. The Bobcats have not they did not make it to state last year. We haven't, that's not normal for Madison. And so I'm curious to see how they regroup themselves coming out this year. How are they going to do to get back? That's their goal, right? You want to beat Rigby. That's always they've got them right down the street, right? You've got this big sleeping giant. You got to take care of them. You got to deal with Highland. They have a lot to deal with in that conference year in and year out. And so curious to see how they do in this game against Bonneville, and how, maybe some of their players coming together. So keep an eye on that and see how it goes. And for Bonneville, if they're able to get a huge win, watch out. That would be a big victory for the Bees to get their season off started in a big way.
Yeah, Bonneville with a new head coach in Shane Stevenson from Montana, coached at Carroll College for a brief stint, and then has been coaching high school ball down in Arizona. So a lot of optimism around that Bonneville program. All right, I'll take the third one. Highland is going to travel to Las Vegas, guys, to play the Legacy High Longhorns, technically North Las Vegas. You'll notice they already have a game under their belts. They're 1-0, and they went 8-4 a season ago. This is going to be a stiff test for Highland right out of the gates. Guys, they lost every single starter from last year's championship team. Now, they did have some rotational pieces that earned all conference accolades, and they were really hanging their hat on Kai Callan, who was slated to be a returning starter at cornerback and probably one of the top players in his class. But he moved to Carrollton, Georgia to play a little stiffer competition. He has committed to James Madison University at the D1 level. And so we wish Kai Callan the best, but Highland is going to have to figure out, okay, their JV program is typically pretty good. We'll see if they can graduate to the varsity level and have that same level of success. So that is our 6A breakdown, guys. Let's just jump down a classification level and go to the 5A ranks. And let's see here, 5A. And you can tell we're doing this live, folks, because I've got all my graphics and I'm trying to find the right one. Here we go. Our preseason favorites for the 5A ranks. We actually had a tie at the top of the Inland Empire League preseason coaches poll. Lakeland and Sandpoint both tied. Bishop Kelly, the favorite over in District 3, the Southern Idaho Conference. Twin Falls won our preseason coaches poll in District 4, the Great Basin Conference. Same thing in District 5, guys. We had a tie at the top. Pocatello and Preston both tied for first in our preseason coaches poll. And then the Skyline Grizzlies, the favorites over in District 6, the High Country Conference. Scaggs, Lakeland, Sandpoint, little wrinkle this year, Lewiston dropping down from the 6A ranks, but at least according to our preseason polling, it's still going to be the same old, Lakeland and Sandpoint duking it out.
You know, that's the thing. You kind of look at it, you like think Lewiston coming down from 6A, oh, there's going to be, you know, an automatic, you know, leg up on that because of the competition they've been playing the last few years, the numbers and enrollment. Lewiston's got some unknown question marks there. So, you know, they're running in a new quarterback, new running back, replacing a lot of the guys up front on the offensive line. Let's talk about Sandpoint and Lakeland. You talk about those two teams. You know, I think it's strengths and weaknesses where Lakeland's strong, Sandpoint, maybe that's their weakness, or not want to say weakness, but maybe the part where they don't have as strong or as much depth. Lakeland's a pretty balanced club, and they're bringing in, you know, I like the reshuffling they did with some of the coaching staff, bringing Tim Kiefer back to run the defense. I thought that was an awesome move in the offseason to get him back involved with the program. You know, the Court Milks has moved over to run some of the offensive line stuff. Tim Anderson's running the DBs and receivers, and like they got talent on talent. There's a lot. That was one thing last year. They were so injury bitten last year that those younger kids got a lot of playing time. They took some massive lumps in a few games, but that's paying. I think it's going to pay dividends this year. You look at their size. They got beef up front. They got guys like Carter Vanek on the offensive line. He's an absolute monster. You know, that team's going to be loaded for bear. They're going to have good quarterback play. We know they're going to be able to run the ball. Lovely Wheels back. So at running back, they've got a dynamic. I mean, he's a dynamic running back, in my opinion. I think that team's going to be pretty darn tough to beat the way they run the ball and control on offense. Sandpoint, you know, you look at them defensively, they're going to be pretty good. I think especially their front seven is going to be tough. They got a lot of big dudes. We've known them in the past to have, you know, nice, good size offensive linemen that just get down and dirty in the trenches. You know, that's no shortage this year. They've got more guys up front. They hit the weight room in the offseason. They've been looking really good. You know, they've got experience coming back at the quarterback position too, does Sandpoint. I mean, that game towards the end of the year, that Lakeland Sandpoint game is in my mind. I could see why this is a dice roll as far as who's favored in the IEL, because they're both so balanced. I honestly, right now, sitting here, if it's on paper, Lakeland's got the edge in my mind. And you don't always say that. You know, we've seen Sandpoint, you know, running roughshod in the conference and doing really well at the state level. But, you know, Lakeland's I think they're going to turn some heads this year, especially with that schedule they've got. They're going to have some favorable wins in their hip pocket. I realistically could see all three teams out of this conference, though, making it to state.
Yeah, Sandpoint is going to play Twin Falls. We'll talk about that on the schedule here in just a moment. So I'll just pretty briefly talk about the Bruins over in District 4. It's going to come down to Twin Falls and Minico again. The polling in our preseason poll was very close. Twin Falls did just edge out Minico. Twin Falls lost more to graduation, but they were also the better team a year ago. So Amos Kuhn is back at running back for the Bruins. They've got a new quarterback in Will Marlowe, and overall looking to replace 18 seniors, but Ben Coring does a fantastic job with that Twin Falls unit. Minico, you know, they bring back Preston Sonner Cranny, who was a dynamic running back last year, and it's a little different Minico than we're used to seeing. We got used to Keelan McCaffrey coaching him up in that wing T. He's now at Centennial, and instead Sherm Blaser, the former CUNA and Hawaii coach, has come, and they've gone from the wing T to a 4 wide. And so if you haven't been to a Minico game in a year or two, it might look a little different, but they're a fun team to watch as well, Logan.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I saw them a couple times last year, and they, like you said, making the switch. They had a lot of coaches move away from Minico over the last couple of years, so definitely a different style offense that should be fun to watch. And came down to the end last year between those two, and like you said, looks like it's probably going to shake out that way again this year.
Yeah, let's look at Bishop Kelly over in District 3, Logan. They are the reigning state champions. Last year 4A, now this year 5A. Won an all-time classic with Hillcrest, where Hillcrest had a chance at the game-winning field goal as time expired. It missed. Bishop Kelly hung on and won. I'll admit, I was not a believer in Bishop Kelly last year. I kept saying they're walking on thin ice, but they were able to skate their way through. And I mean, they bring back a lot of talented pieces again this year.
Yeah, they do. They do lose a couple of really big pieces. I think you mentioned it earlier. Peter Minner is gone. The player of the year, Rakeem Johnson, is gone as well. Cooper Cannon is gone. They do lose some players, but this is a team that went undefeated last year and rolled through their conference schedule, really rolled through the playoffs up until that state championship and faced a really good Hillcrest team. But I don't think we can count out Bishop Kelly. They really have been the top of the 4A or the 5A now, SIC, the last couple of years. Emmett has given them some trouble, here and there. But right now, with all the pieces they bring back, a lot of their defense is back. They're still going to get, they're still going to get theirs, as they say, right? They're still going to be right in the mix of things. I mean, you can't count out what Coach Coolig has done since moving over, right? And wins a state championship his first year. And, they look stacked and loaded to go once again. I think if anybody's going to be able to compete with them, I think it's Skyview. I think Skyview is a team to watch out for. Last year, Skyview had 2 losses to now 6A teams, Middleton and Cuna. And then their other 2 losses on the season were to Bishop Kelly and Hillcrest, the 2 teams in the state championship. So they didn't lose to anybody in their own classification that did not play for a state championship. And so they're a team to watch out for. They've got good returning players, for the Hawks as well. Like Mason Cron is back, an all-conference player there for Skyview. So just one of the great players. Henry Downey as well will be back for the Hawks. So that's another team to watch out for in the SIC this year. It'll be fun to see what Shea McClellan can do with Valley View. We can see, they're a team that always lurks around, right? You don't want to see Valley View in the playoffs. They seem to always show up and make a name for themselves and make some noise and pull an upset. So be on the lookout for Valley View to be an improved team this year as well.
Yep. And Nampa moving down complicates things a little bit too in that SIC. Let's wrap up with East Idaho. We see up here on the screen, Pocatello and Preston tied for there's only 3 teams. It's them and Century. Pokey has been the premier team in this conference for a long time. They've gotten deep into the playoffs, but that kind of signature program defining class has moved on. Riken Echo Hawk, the electric running back, is gone. A lot of their wide receivers and defensive backs are gone. So the question for Pocatello is, can Dave Spillett in his 10th year, kind of like Highland, pull up those JV kids and find that same success? Preston was very young last year, really took their lumps. Season opener against Lakeland. Preston's junior quarterback, Reggie Larson, gets injured. They have to bring in this freshman named Carter Perry. He had an incredible story. He overcame leukemia to return to the football field, which was pretty significant. And then the kid did all right. Carter Perry did so well, in fact, that he's going to be their quarterback this year. Reggie Larson has moved to wide receiver full time. And so for Preston, it's going to be interesting to see, can those younger players continue to take a step forward. And then in District 6, of course, the High Country Conference, you've got the Skyline Grizzlies. Yeah, they lost to Monty Morell. He transferred to Rigby, but they bring back Zion Crockett, who was a fantastic back/receiver. They do bring back some good defensive players, especially at the linebacker level, and probably one of my favorite guys, Taylor. That's right. First name Taylor, last name Taylor for the Skyline Grizzlies. He'll be a big part, right? He'll be a big part of that defense. Skyline did lose Atticus Furiman, who was set to be a 4-year starter on the offensive line, but he injured. He had an injury in the offseason and won't be able to play this year. So that is kind of a bummer for Skyline there. Hillcrest was very close in our preseason polling, and Blackfoot is a team that's getting a lot of buzz early on in the 6A ranks as well. Let's take a look at this is the beefiest schedule of any of the classifications here in week 1, guys. So lots of items on the menu here for the Class 5A week 1 schedule. Logan, you get to bat leadoff this time. Give me one game you're keeping an eye on.
Brandon, I really like the Skyview Minico game. I think it's one that you want to keep an eyeball on, see how this goes. I mentioned Skyview, maybe a team that's lurking. They've overcome a lot over the last couple of years, made it to the state playoffs last year and knocked off Shelley in the first round. Minico, we obviously know what they're about. They are predicted to finish first or second in their league. I just think that this will tell a lot of story both ways, right? Is Minico still where they were at a year ago? Is Skyview ready to take that next step? I think this will tell a lot. Even, if it's a close game, I still think both teams walk away happy. If one gets blown out, I think that there's going to be some serious things that need to be looked at. But a close game, I think, will be a good sign for both of these teams moving forward. So excited to see what happens over in Rupert in this game on Friday night.
Yeah, if I'm looking at the board of games here, I think the one that jumps out to me, I'll save Twin Falls Sandpoint for Scaggs because I know he really wants to break that down. I will tell you, I'm kind of interested to see Canyon Ridge at Emmett. Both of these teams made the playoffs last year. Canyon Ridge is kind of the third team that is being considered in terms of that Great Basin Conference behind Twin Falls and Minico, and can Coach Juan Alvarado in his second season continue to build up this Riverhawks program, taking on an Emmett team that, at this point, if you doubt Rich Hargett's coaching abilities, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. He takes limited resources in terms of roster and play. I mean, Emmett is one of the smallest 5A schools. In fact, Emmett is playing down a level in all of their other fall sports, soccer, volleyball, etc. They're playing at the 4A level. Well, they're too successful, so they got to stay at the 5A level for football. Coach Hargett last year had a couple of injuries to quarterbacks, had to move some guys around, and just continued to do a fantastic job. So I think Emmett's going to be pretty good again this year. My question is, as Canyon Ridge gotten better, this will be a good measuring stick for Coach Alvarado and the Riverhawks. All right, Scaggs, give me one.
Well, you said you wanted me to break down that Twin Falls Sandpoint game. And, I mean, there's another game that's standing out there on two that you guys kind of skimmed over. But I think that Skyview Minico game is going to be absolutely stellar. I think you made a great pick there, Logan. But, yeah, this Twin Falls Sandpoint game is going to be very interesting to see. I mean, it's got playoff flavor. I mean, you look at both these teams, they've got the playoff pedigree coming in. That Twin Falls has had some success as of late, and Sandpoint's had their successes too. They've graduated a couple of really, really talented classes. How's Sandpoint going to replace guys like Max Frank? That's going to be a really interesting thing to see. And that's a team though that you look at the talent they've had. It's the JV level. You kind of look. I know that not everybody talks about JV football or freshman football around the state of Idaho, but Sandpoint's JV team last year was pretty darn good. And they've got talent. They've been growing that program the right way, starting with their little guy programs and stuff like that, building that from within. And they're starting to see fruits of their labor. Coach Knowles is a phenomenal coach. I look at him and what he's done there with Sandpoint. I think, you look at like the echelon of coaches in the state of Idaho, he's right there with the rest of them. I mean, that guy can flat coach. He's got a great staff around him. That's going to be a great ball game on Friday night, Twin Falls and Sandpoint. The other one that stood out to me that nobody said, which I was kind of surprised, is that Shelley Preston game, I think, is going to be really interesting, something to keep an eye on. Two teams, with kind of different storylines coming into the game, but they're both teams that have playoff aspirations and frankly, the rosters there that could say like, hey, yeah, this genuinely could be a playoff team. Granted, you have a 16-team field at 5A, but that's a game I think that people are sleeping on a little bit just because some of the other games out there look so good.
Yeah, Shelley is working in a new head coach, Jason Bird, who played for Shelley and then played running back at the University of Idaho. Will the run and russets continue under former coach Josh Wells? Man, they love to pound the ball in between the tackles. We'll see. It's going to be a fun schedule of games, though, for the Class 5A ranks here in week 1. All right, guys, we'll take a break. And when we come back, we jump down to Class 4A and 3. See, I got to get used to the terminology too. What used to be 3A and 2A, it's now 4A and 3A. Our mid schools coming up right after this. You're watching Gem State GameDay on IdahoSports.com.
A hit in the morning, another between class, after school, and more before bed. Vaping sucks you in quick. Not to mention all the chemicals and health problems everyone's talking about. That's why thousands of teens are ready to take back their life their own way with My Life, My Quit. When you sign up with us, you'll get a free and simple quit plan that makes it easier to stop vaping. Visit mylifemyquit.com or text Start My Quit to 36072.
So let's take a look, guys, at our Class 4A. Welcome back to Gem State Game Day, by the way. Let's take a look at our Class 4A preseason favorites here. This is according to our coaches' polls. And again, you can find all of those coaches' polls at our website, IdahoSports.com. Moscow, the newcomer to the Intermountain League, District 1 and 2. They're dropping down a level for competitive reasons. They have the enrollment of a 5A school, but this is a program that's fallen on hard times. So they're dropping down a level to try and build that program back up. And Bonners Ferry and Timberlake seem to think that's a bad thing for them because they both picked Moscow number 1 in the preseason coaches poll. Homedale, of course, the favorite over in the Snake River Valley Conference. It was very tight, edged out Weiser by a single point in our voting system. Kimberly, the overwhelming favorite over there from District 4. The SCIC, the Sawtooth Central Idaho Conference. And then over in East Idaho, Snake River, your favorite in District 5. And, of course, Big Bad Sugar Salem, the favorite over in District 6. I'm going to start with Sugar Salem just because, well, they're the defending champs. And, man, Logan, what is it? They've won 5 of the last 6 state championships, right?
Right, and we're about 6 inches from making it 6 of 6. If they weren't stopped at about the half grass line there on a 2-point conversion in double overtime against Weiser.
Yeah, just a phenomenal program. They continue to excel year in, year out. Tyler Richens does a fantastic job. And yeah, they did lose some like pretty impactful players, right? Carson Harris was the 3A player of the year last year. Fantastic running back. They lost some really big linemen up front, and yet Sugar just reloads. They never rebuild. Some guys to keep an eye on this year: Ben Aldrich on the offensive and defensive lines, Braden Pocock, Clark Sidaway. All 3 of those guys started last year as linemen, and they are all back. You've got Riley Williams and Abe Baldwin back to lead the wide receivers. Dawson McAnally was a fantastic linebacker, great running back as well. And then, we ask all of our coaches when we work on our season previews to give us a list of new incoming players that will make an impact. Coach Richens sent us a list that was about 15 guys deep. And so he's counting on a lot of new guys, including senior Jack Gardner, who steps into the starting quarterback role for the first time. Of course, he's a fantastic baseball player, helped lead the Diggers to the baseball championship this past spring. Logan, the team that always seems to be the opposition for Sugar Salem is Homedale. Homedale has gone 60-8 over the past 6 seasons, and yet bagel when it comes to state championships because of Sugar Salem.
Right, and because their season either ends with them, Weiser, or last year Teton. That seems to be how the season ends for them. And again, just like you mentioned with Sugar, Homedale just reloads. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what's going on with the season. Doesn't matter how it goes. Doesn't matter who they lose. They're just going to plug somebody else in there, and they're just going to be good. That's what's going to happen with Homedale year in and year out. It's what continues to happen with Homedale. They do lose their starting quarterback from last year, but Dylan Fine was the quarterback last year, but he hadn't played quarterback before that. He's headed off to the University of Utah for baseball, right? He's a phenomenal pitcher, and he was asked to play quarterback this year. Probably looking like maybe Xavier Uranga will step into that role for Homedale. But Homedale, they like to get it done on the ground a lot as well. They've got a couple of good receivers out there. Luke Henry, great. They've got one of the worst matchup nightmares you'll find in Lucas Hall. He is going to tower over anybody that goes up to defend him. He is one of the tallest players that you will find this year on the football field. Great basketball player, great baseball player as well for Homedale. You know what? That's one that you just throw it up and say, hey, Luke, close your eyes. Hall's down there somewhere. He'll get it. He's just one of those guys that you can lean on in a tough situation, I think. So Homedale got a lot of good to look forward to this upcoming year. Like you mentioned, Weiser is that other team that sleeps, in the wings, that waits for their chance. They have done what Homedale has not and won a state championship over the last couple of years. They're the one team to beat Sugar Salem in that. And so Weiser is just a team, with Coach Harris, that you just cannot count them out. You can't. They're going to be good. We know that. It's going to come down to them being in the semifinals, more than likely quarterfinals, somewhere in there, and probably playing either Sugar or Homedale and a chance to go to the next step. So, it's, those three, it seems to always be those three in the mix, and I think it'll be the same this year as well.
Yeah, we should mention it was an all-East Idaho championship last year, Sugar Salem and Teton. Now, Teton lost a lot of talent. I mean, Thomas Husevelt might have been the best all-around player in the classification last year. But they do bring back the Joyce brothers, Jack Joyce and Joker Joyce. Joker is as a corner. Jack is a running back. Can they fill in the pieces around those two is the question there. Speaking of East Idaho, Snake River, the favorite over in District 5, the Southeast Idaho Conference. It was a tough league to gauge. All four teams received as high as second place votes because you've got Marsh Valley with a new coach and Jared Michelson. You've got American Falls, who brings back several athletes. American Falls was actually second in our preseason poll. And then Bear Lake moving up a classification as well. They were a very young team last year, took their lumps, and now are those young guys ready to compete at a higher level? We'll find out. But that was a tough league overall to gauge. Wasn't as difficult in District 4 with Kimberly. Spoiler alert, Bulldogs are going to be pretty good. They bring back Mason Jensen at wide receiver. They bring back Damon Taylor at running back. They bring back some dynamic defensive players. And this is a Kimberly team that many people expect to push the traditional powers, Homedale, Sugar, Teton, Weiser. No championships for Kimberly in their school history. Last year, their coach, Joe Dilley, said, we'd like a blue trophy for once. He said, we've got plenty of other colors. We want that first place trophy. We'll see if Kimberly can deliver there. And then I think the most intriguing storyline, Ryan, is up in the Intermountain League with Moscow dropping down. They had a pretty good quarterback last year in Noah Velasco, who should be back this year. And so Moscow did struggle to find their footing at the 5A level, but as we can see, they've already moved down, and already their peers are expecting Moscow to be pretty good out of the gate.
Yeah, moving down, moving the needle a little bit. You look at, we talk about Noah Velasco, a quarterback, very live arm. That's the thing. And he's got receivers around him too. There's some team speed there that's going to be in his hip pocket to be utilized. And I think where Moscow is going to make strides is going to be on the offensive and defensive front this year. They've been able to get numbers coming back out this year. Coach Bayfus has done a great job with that, getting guys to turn back out. Moscow historically has had very, very strong defensive and offensive linemen. In fact, they've got a dude that just got drafted the NFL in Ellis. So, like you talk about, Moscow historically has been known for being a gritty team. I think they're going to get back to the basics and get back to what they were known for. Coming down the classification, I think, is going to help them immensely in finding success, especially early on in the year. I mean, typically you've been seeing them obviously having to play, that some 6A smattering teams sprinkled in there and last year and years past. And they got a tougher schedule, though. I mean, they're playing Clarkston from Washington and Pullman on the front end of that schedule. I think they're going to take some lumps from a few of those teams, but I think it's going to pay dividends come league season. The IML is an interesting league. The more I look at it on paper, because Timberlake graduated so much talent. You and I got to call that first-round playoff game they had last year with American Falls. And you just look at that lineup, and you're like, man, these guys, you would think that they would have more state tournament wins under their belt with that group of seniors that they had last year because they were so dynamic. And You talk about drop off. I mean, losing a quarterback like Cole Meidinger was phenomenal. I thought he was very underrated at the 3A level last year. Now they're 4A. How are they going to fill in those shoes? We know they run the wing tee. They're going to go basic ground and pound, 3 yards and a cloud of dust on you, and then eventually pop, a play action over the middle to a tight end for 75 yards for a touchdown. That's Timberlake football. The team that kind of I have the biggest question mark is Bonners Ferry. I mean, they weren't the strongest. They had that nice season the year before, playoff run, great group of seniors. There's a bunch of brothers that are on this year's group. You look at Brody Rice at quarterback, I think is another year under his belt, more experience. Bonners Ferry is kind of the X factor question mark team for me coming into the season. And more I look at it, I'm like, man, there is actually some really nice pieces coming back for the Badgers. You look at Abubakari, he is an absolute, that guy's a freak. You look at him lining up at tight end. How are you going to guard that? The kid is just an absolute monster. And so, he's going to be an absolute threat in the red zone. We know they can run the ball. Defensively was their question mark last year. They had a tough time stopping anyone, and they had penalties on penalties. And I know Coach talked about it a lot this offseason, but they want to get back to just playing more disciplined football. I think that they could find themselves in the mix realistically towards the end of the year. That Moscow Bonners Ferry game could be pretty interesting.
Yeah, you mentioned Sule Abubakari, the 6'6", 220-pound junior tight end, absolute monster. If you're looking for a name that's not out there that's going to blow up this year, Sule Abubakari. His older sister Asha is now at Fresno State, where she is throwing for the Bulldogs track team. So, very impressive family for sure. Let's go to the schedule of 4A games here in the opening weekend of action. I get to go first this time, guys, and I'm going to choose to talk about Timberlake. You set it up on a tee for me, Scaggs. Timberlake playing Sugar Salem, neutral site game in Anaconda, Montana, home of the Copperheads. Yes, Anaconda High Copperheads. It'll be a fun game. It's a cool stadium. It'll be an interesting atmosphere. They're meeting in the middle, so to speak. Timberlake, they lost a lot. Cooper Lenz, 2-way All-State player. Jacob Yetter, Timberlake's school record holder in every receiving category. Cole Meidinger, Timberlake's all-time passing yardage leader, and 6 of the top 7 offensive linemen. Coach Kelly Amos summed it up. He said, hey, we returned 233 yards of offense from a team that had over 4,300 yards a season ago. So that's a little work in progress. Sugar Salem, I expect to win this game, but I am more interested to see how does Timberlake look against the absolute best right out of the gate. Ryan, what game are you looking at?
I'm not going to steal the game I think Logan's going to pick. So I'm going to kind of go off the board a little bit, and it's going to be a cross-classification matchup. I like that. And I'm going to be the homer, go up north. Lakeland and Bonners Ferry, to me, the only reason I picked this game is I want to see how close Bonners Ferry can keep this game. I really look at Lakeland. Obviously, they can put their foot on the gas and score points in a hurry, especially with that running game that they've got. Can Bonners Ferry buckle down and play defense? I really look at that game, and if the Badgers can play more consistent, play ball control on offense, and then they can stand their ground a little bit better on defense this year, it'd be interesting to see how things go with that schedule that they've got.
Logan?
Man, you just totally swung and missed on this Declo Teton game. How about this? These are two teams.
You didn't pick the one I thought you were going to pick.
These two teams played for a state championship last year. They both the 3A and 2A championships last year. These two teams did lose some, lost some pieces, but it'll be real interesting, I think, to see how this one shakes out. I think Declo is ready to go. I think they're a little bit mad about what happened last year, losing that game, the state championship to Westside. I think that they thought they didn't play their best game in that state championship, and they're already they didn't sulk about it. It was almost like, all right, we're done. We're going to do this next year. And how about it to start off their season going on the road and playing Teton? I think it's a great way to start things off for Declo. And then if you're Teton on the opposite side, you lose couple of great players you mentioned it, Brandon Husefeld, but Ty Brown is gone. So is Jack Nelson, who was the quarterback last year. So it'll be interesting to see who kind of fills in these gaps for Teton on the offensive side of the ball. But when you look at Declo, they're returning a lot of great guys. Rasmussen, Brackenberry, Garrard is back. They've got a lot of good players. This should be a really fun, entertaining game, I think, between two teams that played for state championships last year.
Okay. Well, you
picked Snake River Homedale. That's
no,
what I thought you were going to choose.
Or Kimberly Fruitland. We'll talk about that at the end of the show here when we promo what's coming up. Okay, so you kind of started the 3A train here with your Declo commentary, Logan. So let's bring it up. Here are the preseason Class 3A favorites, district by district. Grangeville, the reigning champs from the Central Idaho League. They still get the nod. They did lose some key pieces to graduation, but they bring back some pretty solid athletes too. David Goykoa, especially at quarterback, can really sling it. Melba and Nampa Christian tied in our Western Idaho Conference preseason poll over there in District 3, and that's probably appropriate because Nampa Christian won in the regular season and then enjoyed a first-round bye in the playoffs, then had to play Melba right away in the quarterfinals. Melba won in the rematch. And then interesting wrinkle this year, guys, no longer are Declo and Wendell on their own in the Canyon Conference of District 4. They have actually joined District 5's Southeast Idaho Conference. So last year, Declo and Westside played in the regular season. It was a non-conference game. This year, it could be the game that decides the regular season conference title. And how about Declo coming in as the newcomer, getting the nod in the preseason poll over Westside too, I thought was interesting. And then up in the nuclear conference, Firth got the edge in our preseason poll, although North Fremont and Ryrie were right behind. So let's start with Declo. Logan, you can pretty much said it all. I'll just add that they do have a new head coach in Rhett Jones. Their former coach Josh Stewart took the job at Blackfoot. So Declo, I think, is going to be fine. They bring back a lot of good athletes. They bring back some good offensive and defensive linemen. Renan Loper might be the best two-way lineman in the classification. He's going to be a fun guy to keep an eye on. So Declo, yes, I think we'll be right there with Westside competing at the top of that conference. Let's talk nuclear conference real quick. In East Idaho, Firth got the edge. They do bring back Daryl Vasquez, who's a great quarterback. They bring back some pretty good linemen, but Coach Rigo Vasquez was pretty direct when we asked him in the preseason. He said, we've got to get better on the line. He said, we've got good speed, but will we be able to block and tackle enough to utilize our speed on offense and defense? That's the big question there. Ryrie, we talked to their coach, Josh Huntsman. We said, what are team strengths for you this year? He said, we're returning 9 starters on offense. And I said, okay, you want to expand upon that? And he said, we're returning 9 starters on defense too. So Ryrie is ready to go. North Fremont's got a new head coach. Longtime coach Ben Lenz retired this past offseason. Keith Director is the new coach at North Fremont. They bring back a lot of those talented running backs that they had a season ago. I think they're going to be right in the mix again as well. Logan, break down this Melbourne Nampa Christian thing, because I keep going back and forth on it. I talk myself into Nampa Christian, then I talk myself into Melba.
And they will split, if they play twice, each one will win first. So you want to win, you'd want to lose the first game if you're them, right? If you guys play in the regular season, you want to lose that game so that you win the playoff. That's all. That's just a joke. But that's how it went last year, right? Nampa Christian wins, and then Melba wins the rematch, right? So you choose wisely which one you want to win. But Brandon, I think you're right, though. It's just such a tough choice between these two teams. But I just personally, I really like what Nampa Christian is bringing back. They won the conference last year. They end up losing in the state playoffs to Melba. Melba, goes on and they do make it to the semifinals. And so I think this league is ready to take the next step and have somebody try and get to that state championship game. They've been close to the semifinals for a long time, and now they got over that hurdle, and there's one more hurdle to get over. And I like the depth that Nampa Christian has. I like all the amount of key returning players that they've got back. Yeah, they lose their quarterback, Aiden Thompson, from last year. So, that might be one of the key things for Nampa Christian to see where that fits in, right? what's going to happen, who's going to replace him, how is that going to go for Melba. I'm sure they've got abuse on the team somewhere, but you lose some of the key abuses that you had from years past. So that'll be something for them to take care of. But, I just, in my mind, I just lean Nampa Christian. I just think they're going to be a little bit deeper, and that will help them as the season goes along.
New coach at Melba this year, Mark Karen, former coach Corey Dickard, moving on up. He's the athletic director now, so he's moving up to that deluxe apartment in the sky. Let's move on up to the north. Let's talk about the Central Idaho League. Scaggs, Grangeville gets the nod. Last year, Kellogg and St. Mary's were kind of a step behind, and then Orofino, I mean, obviously, with the tragic passing of Drew Hanna right before the season started, the fact that they were just able to go out and play in his honor every week was a win in and of itself. But Orofino, I think, is going to be a little better. They do bring back a lot of players. Priest River is the name I keep hearing from coaches. And basically what I've been told is, if Priest River has enough kids out, they've got really good kids. Their season got derailed last year with all of the craziness that was going on at their school with their superintendent and all of that stuff, to the point where staffs weren't really in place. Football was kind of the last thing on everybody's mind. So Priest River is kind of a sneaky team too, but it all starts with Grangeville at the top.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about the Bulldogs real quick, because that team is, I think, loaded to bear to make another run this year. Historically, they've been a really strong program, and you look at the pieces around them. You talked about Goiko at quarterback. You can flat spin it, and then you talk about. I think it's overlooked with this group is how good this offensive line is. This unit that they've got, Troy Benefield up front, second team All-State lineman. They've got other guys like Bruzus and Brown, and it's all upperclassmen. It's all juniors and seniors, a bunch of guys that have been in the program for a while. But then you talk about Cooper Poxleitner at running back. I mean, he's a really dynamic running back that not a lot of people talk about around the state, but I think he's going to turn some heads with the numbers this year. That's going to be a really balanced offense for the Bulldogs. They're going to, I think, be a very tough team. We'll see them probably getting some pretty big wins. But you did mention Orofino. That's a team I think that you keep an eye on. They're going to be sneaky good. And I think at times they've got more numbers than they've had in years past. And I know Coach was way up on that they've got kids that haven't played since junior high, but the kids that they got out were the ones that you kind of chase in the school building that are good athletes. They just can't get them to show up. And they came out this year, and so it'll be interesting to see how they gel and mesh together. But there's some nice pieces there for that group. They got the returning quarterback coming back. They've got a nice running back and wide receiver tandem on the offensive side. They're going to have some good talent on the offensive line as far as size goes. So if they can put things together and keep the numbers and keep everyone healthy, Orofino is going to be a team to keep an eye on in that CIL. St. Mary's will be interesting. They graduated some really good pieces, man. They graduated some really, really good kids. So there's a little bit of a rebuild there. It'll be interesting to see who kind of runs through the middle of that pack. I think Grangeville is obviously your upper echelon team. Who's going to get that number 2 coming out? I mean, it could be Priest River, it could be Orofino. St. Mary's can make things interesting. And then obviously the kind of unknown is going to be Kellogg. That they've had talent in the past. They graduated the Lunas, who are actually doing extremely well at the University of Miami, which is pretty cool to see. But they've been kind of trying to scrap piecemeal and pieces there together to build this program back to where it was a few years ago. I like Grangeville as far as the overall favorite this year coming out of that conference, but Orofino's a team in my mind to keep an eye on at that number 2 spot.
Yeah, you probably saw the same social media post I did from Ripley Luna, where these at the University of
incredible.
yeah, that's awesome that the Luna twins from Kellogg, Idaho, are playing for the Miami Hurricanes football. I mean,
and they do it the hard way too. They went out and they took the preferred walk-on route. They didn't even get a scholarship, and they've been still sticking it out. And I mean, from all I can tell is that the coaches on the staff love having those kids there, and they've been excelling and doing the right thing. So that's been awesome to see.
Yep, for sure. Okay, here's our 3A schedule for week 1. Scaggs, you are up first here in the batting order, keeping in mind that Logan already sniped one off the board when he talked about Declo and Teton.
Here's the deal. All right, this American Falls Soda Springs, I know I'm going out of district, out of my region. The American Falls Soda Springs game in my mind is kind of one to keep an eye on. just because both of those teams have been kind of on the pseudo upswing, I guess you could say. It's going to be interesting to see just because of some of the fringe playoff teams that you see that end up seeding in from the 6 through 12 slots in the playoffs. It'd be interesting to see how these teams, especially a cross-classification matchup. We saw American Falls last year. So does a team to keep an eye on that, you could see some things out of this year if everything goes their way. But also that Kellogg-Moscow game in my mind, I want to see what Moscow brings right out of the gate. I don't necessarily think that playing Kellogg first week is going to be their target for the marquee game. I think it's for both of those teams, though. It's going to show up just to see what they have. I don't have much to talk about that first game that I chose other than to me, it's intriguing seeing the two teams playing each other. But as far as matchup goes, that Kellogg-Moscow game has some intriguing sight to it just because of Moscow coming down a class with returning some kids that didn't get a play last year and stuff. And how do these pieces fit back together?
All right, Logan, since Scaggs decided to talk about 2 games, there's only 2 games left on the board here.
Way to go, Ryan. Give me New Plymouth and Firth. I think this is a good test for New Plymouth. Again, we talked about how good their league is, right? Having to deal with Melba year in and year out, having to deal with Nampa Christian and formerly Coal Valley Christian, who's moved up. But you know what? If New Plymouth can go over there and hang with or beat Firth, I think you've got a different conversation about the entire league. And so that's kind of the idea behind this game. I think, Firth on paper, right, should be able to win this game. But if New Plymouth goes over there, wins it, keeps it very close, I think we've got a whole different conversation about the Western Idaho Conference that we get to have. So excited to see how that one goes and how that has ripple. This game will have ripple effects throughout the whole year with Max Prep rankings, especially if New Plymouth can go over there and come away with a win. I feel like we always see that with the league over here. The WIC sometimes gets hurt in terms of that seedings when it comes out and you see a team like a Soda, a Springs, or a Malad that's got 2 wins that gets in over a 4 or 5 win New Plymouth team. So this will be a game that, depending on the score and the result, will have ripple effects throughout the whole season for both conferences.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And then, you look at the last game, Coal Valley Christian and Marcine. I feel like there's transfers that are happening everywhere, but it seems like it's really happening where you're at, Logan, in the Treasure Valley, where Austin Rovig, quarterback, goes from Timberline to Rocky. You had Shea McClellan, the Marcine coach, take the Valley View job. Cash Hance transfers with him along with another player. Coal Valley Christian lost their quarterback that they were counting on, and they've lost a couple of starters that have transferred to Eagle and Owyhee. New Plymouth,
which is funny. Everybody always says, "Oh, it's the private schools," and it's and as Connor Jackson told us, it works the other way just the same.
Yeah. You had New Plymouth. Derek Walker transferred from Middleton to New Plymouth, back to Middleton. He's at Middleton for his last year. You had Cutler King transfer from Parma to New Plymouth. So New Plymouth has been the benefactor and on the other side of getting a player and losing a player. It's just crazy. Coal Valley Christian moved up a level. How will they compete? It'll be very interesting to see. Marcine has a new coach now, obviously with Shea McClellan gone, Mike Forestier. It'll be interesting to see. Marcine was a playoff team last year, and they do bring back Luke Steinmeier, a fantastic tight end who is one of the most underappreciated players in the state. So that's going to be an interesting one. Coal Valley, I think, is going to struggle, having to play Homedale, Fruitland, Weiser. So if they can bankroll a win here early against Marcine, maybe they can build up some positive momentum. All right, that is it for 11-man football, guys. We're going to take a break, and we will come back with our final 2 classifications, 2A and 1A, and the 8-man ranks, and an interview with Butte County head coach Sam Thorngren coming up on the other side of this break as well. The Pirates, the defending 2A state champs, can they make it 2 in a row? We'll find out right after this on Gem State GameDay on IdahoSports.com.
We're a valley-wide country store. For 100 years, we've been your #1 choice for food, fuel, farm supplies, and just about everything else you could need to get you through your day. We know you work until the job is done, and so do we. For gas on the go or a little extra to help you get down the road, you can count on us. We are proud to employ your neighbors and to be a cornerstone of your community. We're valley-wide. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow. We're here for you.
Happy to be joined now on Gem State Game Day by Sam Thorngren, entering his 19th season as the head coach of the Butte County Pirates. Coach Thorngren, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you. It's great to be here.
Did you ever think you'd be coaching long enough to where you'd be the dean of coaches in the 8-man ranks? You've been up there a while.
No, I didn't. But that was kind of hard. I had no idea that was out there or that I was. But then I seen Hasselstrom's back though, and he's definitely older than me. So there's got to at least be one.
That's right. Ryan Hasselstrom back to coach the Prairie Pirates in his second stint. Maybe we'll have him on Gem State Game Day later on this season. But you are the talk of the town still. Everywhere we go, people want to talk about that championship that Butte County won last year at the 1A D1 level, previously the 2A level, the first in school history. Has it settled in at all, or is it still kind of a euphoric feeling?
Oh, it feels a little more like it really happened now. I mean, there was those first couple months afterwards, it just didn't, it seemed so surreal, but it seems real, but it's kind of made us antsy. We really want to kind of get back into it.
Well, we'll only look back at last year's team one final time. Sort of the magical story of the season. Not only did you guys win your first championship in school history, but of course, everything that happened with Dylan Waymeyer and the near-death experience he suffered on the sidelines and Dilly Strong and all of that. Can you tell our audience how is Dylan doing? He's since graduated, but how's Dilly Strong doing?
Oh, Dilly's doing good. He's actually out there coaching with us a little now. He comes out and helps with practice, and he's probably going to travel with us this season. So he's making a lot of progress, feeling better. He's going to wait a year to go to college because he's still got some stuff to work through, but he's doing great.
That's incredible. So we'll have to keep an eye out for Coach Waymeyer. He helped coach boys basketball last year during his senior year. So you got the coaching bug just like you did.
Well, he's one I actually always thought could do it. So when I step away, I'm always hoping one of my boys steps in and does it for me. So I love having those younger guys involved and, want to keep it going. So Dilly's still plenty a part of the team though.
For sure. Well, for those that may be new to your team this year, all they have to do is look at last year's roster because there's a lot of guys that played quality minutes for you last year that are back this year. But introduce our audience to some of the key players you'll be leaning on this season.
Well, we got a couple senior tailbacks, Rawson Twitchell and Razor Duke, they are really good runners. I mean, either of them be the featured back on most teams, in the state, but we'll feature both of them. And Razor, as you know, can play quarterback too. He'll be a lot in the Brody Westergaard mode, playing running back, receiver, quarterback, kick returner. He'll be all over the field. Whereas Rawson, he's really tough between the tackles and, he can really move them there. So we got those two. And then our quarterback, Keaton Archibald, just really runs that option pretty much to perfection. I mean, we can do things with Keaton we've never been able to do before. He's just a natural. So we got some good ones there, and we got some good sophomore kids that we're pulling up that had waited, and some juniors that probably would have started in most years, but we had a lot of depth last year, so they didn't get to see them.
Well, the wait was certainly worth it as they all got those championship rings over there on the sidelines. So now the season opener, it is our inaugural Gem State game of the week as well. You're playing Logos in a neutral site game in Homedale. You hosted Logos in the semis last year. How did this game get scheduled?
After we played last year, they were talking after the game, and they were really hoping we could work something out. And so, they really initiated it, and we're happy to. We only have one conference game, so we're looking for games all over the place. And Logos is a good one. I mean, they're so tough to prepare for. Like, in some ways, I wonder if playing him in the first game was the best idea. but we'll see. We got good kids. I think they understand what we're trying to get done. And man, Logos just really makes you pay attention. They're pretty creative and well coached, and they're just different. There's not a team you play anywhere in Idaho right now that you can say, well, they're kind of like Logos. Logos is their own type of team, that's for sure. They're one of a kind.
It's a very unique offense, and if you want to know more about what we're talking about, you can tune in to the Gem State Game of the Week this Saturday, 4 o'clock, as Logos and Butte County will meet in a neutral site game at Homedale. You mentioned it in the conference. Chalice drops down, so it's just you guys and Grace. You guys have become very familiar these past couple of years. That's way down the road, though, all the way at the tail end of the season. We might circle back and get your thoughts ahead of that Grace matchup at the end of the year.
Perfect. It's always tough. That'll be fun.
All right, Sam Thorngren, 19th season at Butte County High School. Best of luck this season, and I guess we'll see you on Saturday over in Homedale.
All right. Thank you, Brandon.
Appreciate it. Big thanks to Sam Thorngren, the Butte County head coach in his 19th season with the Pirates, for joining us here on Gem State Game Day on IdahoSports.com. And guys, Brandon Baney, Logan Green, Ryan Scaggs, let's get to it. The 8-man ranks. Here's what we've got going on. Our preseason favorites for Class 2A, Kendrick, the juggernaut that's won 3 1A titles in a row. They move up to 2A now, and they get the nod in the preseason poll over Logos. So Kendrick was picked as the favorite in the White Pine League. Over in District 3, this was an easy one. Notice has won the league, I think, the last 5 years. Looking like it's going to be number 6. Over in District 4, this was a tough one to gauge. Oakley and Murtaugh actually ended up tied atop our preseason coaches poll. And then Logan over in East Idaho, Butte County, and Grace, they both finished tied at the top of the poll as well. Did the coaches vote for their own teams? Did they vote for the other teams? We'll never know. We both know they each got the same exact number of votes, though, because it's only 2 teams.
Right. Yeah. So it's, and I can understand either one of them thinking that they are going to win, because they both are great teams year in and year out.
Yeah, so I mean, and we asked Coach Thorngren about this. I said, hey, I'm not going to ask you about Grace now. You've got 9 weeks until you have to worry about them. But he did acknowledge that Coach James Newby always does a great job with the Grizzlies, and it wouldn't surprise me if both of those teams, Grace and Butte County, were like Final Four teams. They have been the past couple of years.
Yeah, no doubt that we'll see them in that position again. They're 2 teams that, obviously almost like Weiser and Homedale, right? They play each other in the regular season, and it's just a formality because they're both going to be playing late in November anyway, right? And it could go either way when it gets to that point. Last year, both of their seasons ended against Oakley. One defeated Oakley, one lost to Oakley. So that's something to keep an eye on too, as Oakley will be going up against Murtaugh, who I kind of like that pick. Murtaugh has been trending up the last couple of years, right? Made it to state a couple of years ago, wins a game last year. Maybe they are ready to take that next step forward. And, with Carey back down, that maybe a spot is a little more open in that league too.
Yeah, Murtaugh did lose Junior Benitez, the workhorse running back, and they lost their coach, Todd Jensen, longtime football coach, girls basketball coach, and athletic director at Murtaugh, left to become the boys basketball coach at Butte County, of all places. So he went from Murtaugh to Butte County. So Chad Young is the new coach at Murtaugh. Sawyer Young is back at quarterback, and he's got wheels. He was an all-state defensive back, fantastic quarterback as well. So, yeah, optimism for Murtaugh's high. Oakley lost almost everybody. I mean, Dallin Hardy is back to anchor the lines, but Robinson is gone, and Sevier is gone, and just Bridger Duncan and Bragg Bench and all these guys we were used to calling out, Cooper Beck. It was a fantastic senior class that walked through the doors at Oakley. And don't forget, not only do we have the 4 returning semifinalists from a year ago in this classification, but we actually got 2 semifinalists from the 1A level. Kendrick and Hagerman, a lot of people forget, was a Final Four team last year, and Hagerman has moved up into that conference with Oakley and Murtaugh as well. And they've got Kai Kendall, and they've got some big offensive linemen, and I think keep an eye on Hagerman this year too. Scaggs, let's talk about the 800-pound gorilla in the room, Kendrick. I mean, even when they move up, they still get the nod in the White Pine League.
And that's the thing. Like, this Kendrick team is just loaded, and we talk a ton about him. And it was like, Logos was sitting here saying, when they saw the new classifications numbers come out and everything too, they had to just go like, you got to be kidding me. It was our year. Because I really look at Logos. I think they're a great team too. I mean, they're a phenomenally loaded team. But Kendrick, with what they bring back, we talk about what they lost too. I mean, like Ty Kep and the talent on talent that they had graduate. But it's like that cupboard wasn't bare. We had the state championship game last year, and they brought in those freshmen and sophomore underclassmen there in the third and fourth quarter, and they didn't miss a beat. And we talk about like what's it going to look like at quarterback? How are you going to replace Ty Kep? I'm telling you, you go if Nathan Twite does play quarterback, he's the best quarterback in 2A of the state. Like hands down, he can flat spin it. Do they need him to play quarterback? Is the question. I don't think so. Maddox Kirkland, he's going to be great. I think he's a little sophomore. He's an absolute spark plug. We saw him come in that state championship game against Camas County, and he came out with his hair on fire. And I mean, he ran for a big run. He ended up throwing a couple really nice balls. But we talk about what Kendrick brings back. I mean, you've got guys like Sawyer Hewitt, who's first team All-State. We're going to be talking about him all year. Wyatt Cook's going to be on the offensive front too, which is going to be, I think, interesting to see because of his frame. But you throw him with Brock Boyer and Carson Hogan. That's the best offensive unit. The offensive line in 8-man football in the state, in my opinion. I mean, I'm just not saying that, but they've got talent on talent. Raleigh Rotasunder is going to be an absolute stud at receiver. They're not going to miss a beat with what they've got, the pieces that are in place. Where I expect to see Kendrick legit make another. We're going to go 4. Like they could legit be 4 in a row this year.
Yeah, the White Pine League in general with Kendrick and Logos and Camii and Prairie. Let's not forget Ryan Hasselstrom is back coaching Prairie after a 2-year hiatus. Clearwater Valley, Potlatch was a playoff team a year ago. Lapway started a freshman quarterback in Jerice McCormick last year, and even Troy. They still have some good pieces there as well.
Yeah.
The White Pine League is going to be tough. Logan, go ahead.
I was gonna say, we didn't even mention like Lucius Comas and players like that from Logos. Like there is talent on talent in this conference, and it's just, I mean, it is an absolute meat grinder every Friday night.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun. The White Pine's kind of like the Big 12. There's a lot of like 60 to 50 scores.
Well, just what you were saying, Ryan, like Kendrick, I don't think there's it wouldn't shock anybody for them to come in and move up to 2A and go undefeated and win it. I mean, last year they played Oakley and they beat Oakley pretty good. They beat
the brakes off them physically. Absolutely.
So the team that hung with them the best, and I think if you talk to them, they'll say it was Butte County.
Mm-hmm.
That was a game that was right here in Middleton, and I was there, and Kendrick got up big, and Butte County got it down to a score. I believe it was down to a 1-possession game in the third quarter before Kendrick started to put some more points on the board, and then the unfortunate situation with Dylan Waymeyer. But I think that those two have built a friendly relationship, Butte County and Kendrick. And so it would be fun to see if maybe those two meet in a state championship or in a state tournament game. I think they would both enjoy seeing that come to be. So, Butte County, I think we glossed over it just a little bit and jumped over to the Magic Valley, but they return a ton of great players like Keaton Archibald back there at quarterback. They do lose some great players like Brody Westergaard, but they're going to be a really good team right back in the thick of it. And just from a fan base standpoint, I think those two are rooting for each other, and it would be fun to see if those two meet down the line in the season.
Yeah, and then with Grace, real quick to mention too, Grace went through the whole season with one quarterback, and then as the playoffs started, all of a sudden Gavin Draper was in at quarterback and 6'4", just broad-shouldered guy making plays happen. And so that was fun to watch last year for Grace as well. Okay, so from the White Pine League, Logan, which is full of drama, to the league that doesn't have much, the Western Idaho Conference. This is Notice's league until, Idaho City will be competitive, I think, but, Rimrock has Ronaldo Gomez, who is a great singular talent. He plays quarterback. Defensive back, kicks, punts, kick returner, punt returner, drives the bus, makes the popcorn at halftime, all of those platitudes. And then you've got this, Wilder with a new coach and Josh Duty, and this co-op between Centennial Baptist and Gem State. But I mean, if we're just being honest, Notice is way out in front of the rest of the pack.
Right. And then it's not a diss on anybody. I don't think anybody takes offense to it because it is what it is. Wilder was a team that, a decade ago was really in the mix all the time. They were making state tournament appearances, runs at the state tournament. And so they're a team historically that could get there, and I would love to see Wilder back in the mix. But right now, what Coach Woodland's been able to do over there at Notice has just been amazing, right? Just what they've been able to do. And sometimes you look at that and say, oh, they're only good by way of the league, right? Because the league isn't as strong. But what Notice has been able to do is not just because of that. They're a good team outside of that. Put together a lot of great matchups in the non-conference. So this year they have some really tough non-conference games, and I feel like that is what Notice has. They've tried to do it the last couple of years, and I like that they're continuing to do that. Because when it comes to the playoffs, that's the question, right? Can a team from the league here in District 3 get a win in the playoffs? And that has not been the case over the last couple of years. So starting off their season, again, playing teams like Council, Raft River, Tri-Valley, and then at the end of the year, heading to Valley that week before the playoffs, almost like a tune-up, or not a tune-up because Valley's not a tune-up level team, but playing a team that you could see in the playoffs, right? A team that stiff competition. I think that'll bode well for them. And you know what? As a District 3, quote, homer, right, I'd love to see Notice break through and win a game or two in the playoffs this year.
Yeah, we'll see if they can get it done. Here are the opening schedule of games here in week 1 at the Class 2A level. Only 4 of them. And Logan, it is your turn to pick first here. Which one are you gonna?
Okay, I'll take Butte County and Logos just because I'll be there for that game. That will be one of our. I'm sure you're going to get to this, Brandon, here, but we've got a couple of broadcasts coming up this weekend, so you can watch real football. I love the NFL. I love the Carolina Panthers, as sad as that has been over the last my entire life. Preseason football in the NFL it doesn't count. This is real football coming up this weekend that you can watch right here in Idaho Sports. So and Butte County and Logos will be one of those games, and I think Oakley and Grace will be there. So we'll be here for 2 of these 4 games, but that Butte County Logos game is a rematch of the state semifinals a year ago. It hopefully will be warmer than the game in November that I was at, where I couldn't feel my fingers or my toes there in Arco. But this should be fun. Like you said, Ryan, Logos lost a lot of pieces. So it'll be interesting to see how they put those pieces back together on this team. They still have a lot of great pieces picked right under Kendrick in the league. And Butte County, again, same thing. This will be their first game ever as the defending state champs. So it'll be fun to see the Pirates come out on the field as defending state champs and in a neutral site location. We'll see how this one goes. It should be a fun way to start the season off here on IdahoSports.com broadcast schedule.
Ryan, you got a game you're looking at?
I was gonna pick the Butte County Logos game. Obviously, let's go Deary and Troy. I think the geographical rivalry there between the 2 teams. I know Deary, they're picked as the favorite right now in Class 1A in that White Pine League. Taking the 8-mile drive over to Troy to take on the Trojans, a team I think that some people are hoping to surprise some people in that White Pine Conference. They've got that White Pine League's tough, like we talked about just a minute ago. But Troy's another one of those teams that's one of those fringe teams in the middle there in that pack that, if they came out with a nice showing this season and made a state playoff appearance, I don't think it would surprise a ton of folks. It's just, man, can Troy stay healthy? Can chips fall the right direction for the Trojans this year? It'd be interesting to see, because that's a team that I think's got the talent to make some noise in that conference. And Deary, can they come out and get a big win? I think in that first game and flex a little bit, maybe see if they can sneak one over in Troy and get off to a nice start there in the White Pine League in the 1A.
Yeah, and I'll wrap up by saying Oakley and Grace. I don't know what more needs to be said. we've already, but that'll be my official game. I'm keeping an eye on Oakley and Grace. All right, guys, let's wrap up with the 1As. This is Idaho's smallest classification, and this to me is the one that's most wide open when you talk about state champion favorites, because there is a void. Kendrick moved up, Hagerman moved up. Here are the preseason favorites according to our coaches polls. Wallace, the favorite up there in District 1, the North Star League. Deary gets the nod in District 2, the White Pine League, now that Kendrick has vacated. Council was the pick over in the Longpin Conference, over in District 3. Carey, old familiar face after a 2-year sojourn up to the 2A level. Carey is back at the 1A ranks. They're the favorites in District 4 of the Sawtooth Conference. And then Rockland and North Gem got the tie for the Rocky Mountain Conference title in our preseason poll over in Districts 5 and 6. Logan, Cary back in 1A football. It just feels right, doesn't it?
Yeah, and they did well in their move up, right? They made it to the semifinals in a game against Oakley where they had the lead late and lost it, and so they could have won a state championship up at that level 2 years ago. And then I think they made it last year and lost in the first round at Grace, if I remember right. But back down, and that's just what everybody else did not want to see, right? With whether you're Camas County or Dietrich or anybody else in that level. But Cary is going to be right back in the mix. The Panthers should be a tough team to deal with this year once again.
Yep. And they got the nod over Camas County and Dietrich. That top three, though, in that Sawtooth Conference is going to be really interesting. I guess the highest placer from a year ago on our graphic is Rockland, right? Rockland got to the semifinals for the first time in over 30 years last year. They're tied at the top with North Gem. Now, Rockland did lose Teague Matthews, right? He's balling out at Utah State, which is awesome for an 8-man kid from Rockland, Idaho, to go to Utah State. But they do bring back all the receivers that he threw to last year. Aiden Radford is back. Abe Held is back. Rockland, if they can find a quarterback that can distribute the ball, I think Rockland's going to be pretty good again. North Gem's the opposite. We know what they're all about. They're going to run the rock. They're going to line up, and if they throw the ball twice in a game, that's a failure on the coach's game plan. Like, that's how adamant they are to running the ball. And they've got a lot of good. Rusty Hatch, the son of head coach Corey Hatch, he's the quarterback. He runs the option extremely well. Craig Yost was a sophomore fullback last year, rushed for over 1,000 yards. They've got some good linemen up front. Lucky Welker's a good guy on defense. So North Gem's going to be interesting. North Gem missed out on the playoffs last year. There was a 3-way tie for second place between Mackey, North Gem, and Water Springs. They all beat each other. There was only one spot available to the playoffs, went to the 3-way tiebreaker on a point differential, and Mackey actually won it by a single point over North Gem to get that second spot to the playoffs. So North Gem certainly motivated to get back. Logan, Council was a team a lot of people expected to be in the semifinals or beyond last year. They were upset by Dietrich in the first round. You were there for that game.
Yeah, I was not expecting that. I had talked to a couple of parents before, and I had been very adamant that I thought Council got put in a tough spot based on the way that bracket sets up, that they could have been one of the best 2 or 3 teams in the whole classification outside of Camas County and Kendrick last year. And then they get to the playoffs, and Dietrich, they showed up, man. They showed up and they played well. They wanted it, and they won that game and move on. And then, got beat by Kendrick the next week. But man, just a great effort there. And I think Council would love to wash that taste out of their mouth. And that's something that I would expect them to do. They went undefeated in the conference last year, really kind of just pushed through everybody. Garden Valley was that next team behind Council, and we thought that they would be able to push them. Those two met. We were there for that game too. Council they took control of that game and won handily. But again, I don't think you can count Garden Valley out of that equation either. To come in second, they got maybe one of the best players in the league in Trevor Korn. I think last year we did a game last year. I think he scored 5 touchdowns on his birthday, I think is what it was. That game against Horseshoe Bend. That guy, he's tough to bring that down. He's stocky. He's going to be a tough guy for anybody to tackle back in the backfield. They'll be bringing in a new quarterback after, I think. I don't know if there's a Kelly on the team this year. There's got to be somewhere, right? But there has been some sort of Kelly that's been leading that Garden Valley team for years. So we'll see how that shakes out. But when you got a guy like Korn in the backfield, you're going to be able to get it done. But, that 1-2 punch of Council Garden Valley, I think we'll see that play out again this year.
Big question for Garden Valley. Can they find another kicker after Timo Benzinger, the foreign exchange student, returned back to his home country of Germany? We'll have to see if Garden
Valley. That was the first 8-man extra point I saw in a game myself. Was there when he stepped up and booted an extra. I almost was taken aback when I saw them line up for the extra point. But man, he nailed that thing. It was fun to watch.
For sure. All right, we'll wrap up in the North, Ryan. Let's start in the White Pine League. Deary got the nod. It was very close. Lewis County was second in our preseason coaches poll. Really, any of the four, Genesee is dropping down from 2A to 1A, and even I think Timberline is primed for a big step forward. This is a tough league to figure out.
The White Pine League can be a log jam this year. Yeah, I look at it. That conference is pretty evenly matched. I think Pedrobsky with what he's doing at Genesee coming down. They get the kids from Colton playing in that co-op there. That's a team to keep an eye on, I think, in that conference. Timberline's going to be sneaky. I mean, you got Christofferson at quarterback. He's going to be back. There's some talent around him. Can they stay healthy is the question mark. I know that's been kind of their issue the last few years is they get, beat up a little bit through the middle of the season and they end up, missing things there at the end. Lewis County is a team I kind of said in the prep cast last week was the team to keep an eye on in that conference. Monty Madrell does such a good job with the cast of kids that he's got in that program between Highland from Craigmont and Nez Perce kids playing together in that Lewis County team. That's a team. That conference is really hard to pick because you look at Deary. Deary could be one injury away from being on the bottom, and that's the thing that the razor's edge. It's such a fine edge on these teams with who's on top and who's going to be kind of in the mix. But I really look at all these teams like realistically, you could be 2-2 going into the final week. Like it wouldn't surprise me one bit if we had a 3-way tie at the top for the conference at the end of the season.
Yep. And then all the way up to the North Star League where 3 of the 4 teams are actually 2A schools, Lakeside, Clark Fork, Wallace. Poor Coeur de Christ. It's their first year of football, and they're the only true 1A team in this conference. Some notable names that we'll see coaching these teams. Of course, Jared Young at Wallace, who's been there for 10 years, and Patrick Young, not related. He's coaching Clark Fork in his second year, former Wampus Cat alum. And then 2 new coaches, Jerry Louis McGee, former Lake City and University of Montana standout wide receiver. He's taking over the Lakeside program. And then Kellen Clemens, former Oregon and NFL quarterback. He's the athletic director at Coeur de Christ. His son is the freshman quarterback for the Saints as well. So this is an intriguing league, but overall, Wallace, just based on the size and who they have coming back, is the favorite.
Yeah, I look at Wallace with based on their turning things on paper. Wallace looks like the favorite. They were obviously voted by the coaches to be the league favorite. I mean, Lakeside, we saw last year at times, they showed flashes of brilliance. I mean, with just speed and talent that they had in the program. Obviously, they've graduated some kids. We saw them obviously play Lapway for the state championship again in basketball. Some of those kids translates to the football field. Not everybody plays. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see this conference kind of how it shakes out. I think Wallace is going to take it this year. We obviously lost. Mullen St. Regis goes over to Montana. They're over the hill this year playing in Montana. And then Kootenai didn't have a program put together this year, so those kids are playing at St. Mary's. But yeah, it's one of those leagues that kind of gets forgotten about a little bit in the North because we've had some great teams in the last few years, especially with Mullen St. Regis, and Stetson Spooner did such a great job there with that team. And now he's going to hopefully be joining us a little bit here at Idaho Sports, which will be awesome. But yeah, it's Wallace, I think, is the favorite in that conference. I'm interested to see Coeur de Christ in year one. What can a year one team do? And it takes time to build a program, obviously, but you're a private school. Pulling kids from the school district, homeschool kids, kind of come in and make this mishmash and see what, kind of recipe Coach Clemens can put together there. It's going to be cool. We're going to have it this week. I mean, we're going to see week 1, them in Lakeside, what we can get going on in that game, and a lot to tell. Coeur de Christ could come out and set the world on fire. We just don't know. We'll see Friday night.
Yeah, Coeur de Christ will have a freshman quarterback. Wallace has a freshman quarterback, Cooper Miller. He played in the Idaho Bowl this summer and really stood out.
That's what I was going to say, Brandon. I was going to mention that. I know I'm not a North guy, but I saw him play in the Idaho Bowl, and that kid was going toe-to-toe with kids that are going to be at 6A and 5A schools, and he looked just the part. He's got a cannon for an arm. He could be one of the best quarterbacks in all of North Idaho. It doesn't matter the classification. Just that'll be a fun team to watch in Wallace.
Yep. I had somebody tell me last year that he could have been the MVP of the North Star League as an 8th grader, which is
Absolutely. I heard the
No,
same
it's
thing.
fun, super fun to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we are in contract negotiations with former Mullen St. Regis coach Stetson Spooner to be a broadcaster for us this year on some North Idaho games as well. So stay tuned for that also. Okay, here's the 1A schedule for week 1, guys. I get to go first this time, and so I will quickly spotlight the game. Ryan, you and I will be at Lakeside and Coeur de Christ at the Mariman Health Core Center in Worley. It's a beautiful turf field that the Coeur d'Alene tribe installed. And Coeur de Christ is going to play all of their home games in Worley this year. Basically, Lakeside's doing them a solid. The Core Center is doing them a solid. Hey, you're a first-year coach. Kellen Clements has held football camps down there for the tribe in the past, and they said basically, first-year program, we're not going to charge you to use the facilities. I thought that was actually a really cool move by the Mariman Health Core Center to loan their field and their facilities to Coeur de Christ here in their initial year. In terms of the game, a lot of unknowns. We'll see who shows up and everything. There's just, because the turnover was so high with Lakeside and then everybody's new at Coeur de Christ, it's going to be really fun to see these two kind of feel each other out. Ryan, what game are you looking at?
I'm going to look at the game. I already picked that one in previous. I can't go that route. Let's go Timberline and Wallace. I think this is an intriguing matchup. We look at, two teams coming out of summer camp. We talk about Wallace with the freshman phenom QB. Timberline's got their returning quarterback that's a sophomore. You got solid running back that's returned for them as well. That's going to be I think an intriguing matchup that's got some playoff ramifications already here in North Idaho, in my opinion, just based on record and who gets in and that second seed coming out of the White Pine. And any win right now in the state, especially at the 1A ranks, is big as far as rankings go and getting into the playoffs. But that to me, I think, is one of the more intriguing matchups here.
Logan, Clark County is going to play a JV schedule this year against all of their league opponents, and basically it's going to be 6-man games when they play. They've reached an agreement with all the schools in their conference to play 6-man games. So I guess that leaves you with Genesee and Lapwai.
And that's what I was going to take, honestly, because Genesee, a team that's been down the last couple of years, they're going to bring in – they played a lot of freshmen last year. And so naturally you're just going to have a big learning curve, right? A bunch of freshmen stepping in to play against a lot of really good teams. And so I'm going to go up against Lapwai, who has been not as strong in football last year as they traditionally are. They make the playoffs, that they're a pretty good playoff team year in and year out. Not there last year. So two teams looking to take a bigger step forward this year. It should be actually a really good game. I think both teams will learn a lot about themselves this year, and a game that doesn't necessarily count against your league standings. They're close enough that the kids probably know each other a decent amount just down the road from each other. So it should be a fun one to keep your eye on, Genesee and Lapwai.
For sure. All right, we're going to take one final break, and we're going to come back with the lightning round. We have not been lightning quick yet, but we will have the lightning round, and then we'll tell you what's on the schedule broadcast-wise, and, of course, we'll make our picks. One break to go. Thanks for hanging with us on a very long season preview edition of Gem State Game Day here on IdahoSports.com.
Later.
Here. Go. Thank you.
Hello?
I was in an accident.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. I had my seatbelt on.
Welcome back to Gem State Game Day on IdahoSports.com, breaking down the biggest matchups of week 1 and also the season writ large. Next week's show will be a little slimmer, I promise. Let's get to the lightning round. Let's start with this. Coaches, there's a lot of new coaches, guys. In fact, here are all of them. The first-year head coaches this year. Ryan, give me one first-year head coach you're going to be keeping an eye on this year.
So I don't get to pay. I do get to pick a return of somebody that's been Ryan Hasselstrom. I'm going to go over Hass is an awesome guy. I look at that Prairie team. That's the one that could be a team to watch out of the north. They've got a ton of talent coming back, but Hasselstrom does such a great job motivating his guys. That's going to be an absolutely deadly team to watch this year.
Logan?
I kind of like Marty Avila from Payette. He's a Payette guy, right? Been there as an alum. They're a team that needs a spark, right? That needs to believe in themselves, to get back in the mix, to just have been down the last couple of years. So I think it'll be fun to see what he's able to do there and see if he's able to return Payette to some prominence and get them back on the map.
And I'll go with the co-head coaches at Soda Springs, Rod Worthington and Scott Gambles. They coached together in the late 90s, early 2000s, and Soda Springs was looking for a new coach. They approached the pair, and they said, we'll do it only if we get to be co-head coaches and we share all the duties. And so people are really excited down there in Soda Springs, that's for sure. On the flip side, we do have some tenured coaches as well. In fact, here are the longest tenured head coaches, and this is at one school in one stint. Sean Amos from Coeur d'Alene leading the way at 28 seasons. But let's go with Logan first this time. Give me one long tenured coach you're keeping an eye
on. Let's go with Bill Brock. I mean, that's me. I'm a homer. I'm from Middleton, right? So we'll take Bill Brock at Middleton. Middleton, a team that in that time, they've never won a state championship. It's hard to be a coach that's tenured that long and not win a championship. But the thing is, Middleton's been in the mix year in and year out. They move up a classification. And like I mentioned, their only losses so far are to Meridian and Rocky Mountain. Those are the only teams they've lost to since they've been up. But they need to take that step. They need to beat one of them this year. I think they got to get it done if they want to continue to move forward and not just stay where they're at. So I like to see that from Coach Brock and the Vikings this year, being able to beat Rocky or Meridian and take that next step forward.
Ryan?
I would want to pick Zane, and he's probably going to text me after he watches this and rip me for not picking him. As great of a coach he is. I look at this, and Matt Holtree does such a phenomenal job at Homedale. And I look at keeping an eye on him this year with that group of talent he's got coming back with the Trojans. That's a team that, you talked about him at length earlier in this episode, but he just, I think, kind of gets overlooked at times with the success that they've had in their program and what he's been able to do there in that tenure. Just a phenomenal coach.
Yeah, and you were talking about Zane Hobart from Kendrick. I'll single out Scott Berger at Skyline, 16 seasons, and of course Skyline lost in the semifinals last year to Hillcrest. I think Skyline's going to be very motivated to get back to their perch atop the 5A classification, so I'm keeping an eye on Coach Berger. Okay, let's look at the teams that have never won a state championship, guys. Here it is, the schools that have never won a title in football. Ryan will go first this time. Give me one team that's going to break the drought, that's going to end the drought this year and get that blue trophy.
Since I get to go first, I'm going to take Kimberly. So I think that's you talk about a program that's just absolutely loaded, and they have a whole wealth of talent there and a great coaching staff. That school is phenomenal. I think that this year's the year they get it done.
Logan?
Give me a Waihe. I think if they've been able to do it in just about every other sport. I'm not saying that they're going to do it. Just when I look at the list, the team that they've taken small steps forward every year so far on their football team, and so I expect another step forward. I think it's the only. I'm joking. I think it's the only sport they haven't won a state championship in yet. Right? They've just been so dominant since becoming a school. And so, give me a Waihe to be a team that maybe makes a run for their first state title.
And I'll take Wallace. We're all aboard that. We're all aboard the Wallace train. Hey,
that's a good pick.
1A is wide open. I think Wallace has a great shot to do it. So
absolutely.
And then a larger list here, schools that missed the playoffs a season ago. Here are all the teams that missed out on the postseason from last year. Ryan, give me one team that is going to actually, Logan, you go first this time. Logan, give me one team that's going to get back to the postseason after missing out last year.
Valley View. Give me Valley View and Coach McClellan getting it done and bringing the Falcons back to the playoffs. And now I'll stamp my name to it now. They'll win a game. When Valley View sneaks into the playoffs as a 15-14 seed, they find a way to give a team problems, and I like that Valley View team to sneak their way into the playoffs this year and potentially win a game.
Ryan?
That's a good pick. Let's go with Lewiston. I think Lewiston Bengals coming down a classification, just how deep the IEL is at 5A. I still think with their schedule and what they got this year, they were a little more friendly on the scheduling. They do have some tough games ahead of them, but I still think they got some winnable games. So I think the Bengals make it into the playoffs this year.
Okay, I could go Wallace again, but I won't do that. I'll go with Nampa. I think Nampa High dropping down to the 5A level. It's going to help them compete a little better, and I think they could definitely grab one of those. So I guess we'll see, Logan. We got Nampa and Valley View. We're at odds here, conference rivals. I'll go with the Bulldogs.
And it might come down to those two when they play. That might be what it comes down to.
It definitely, yep. Under first-year coach Ty Thomas. Former Montana Grizzly, Ty Thomas. Okay, let's wrap up with this, guys. Here is the schedule of games that we're going to be bringing to you here in week 1 on IdahoSports.com. What's on tonight? Yeah, let's take a look and see here. This is, of course, you're not going to watch on an old TV like that, but here's what we got. Skyview at Minico, Oakley at Grace, Lakeside and Coeur de Christ all on Friday, Butte County and Logos. That's our IdahoSports.com Gem State game of the week. Saturday, 4 o'clock from Homedale. And then Kimberly at Fruitland Saturday night at 7 o'clock as well. So 5 games to whet your palate. Are you ready? Yeah, it's going to be a fantastic week 1 of the high school football season. And all that's left to do, guys, is to make our picks. We're bringing it back this year. It was very popular on social media. The 3 of us plus Scott Burton, our Magic Valley prepcaster, Sean Kane, our East Idaho prepcaster, and our boss, Paul Kingsbury. We're all going to pick 6 games from 6 classifications, 1 from each classification each week, and we'll keep track of the season standings, and we'll keep you updated here on Gem State Game Day every week on how the season standings are looking. But we've got our initial pick 6 selections here, and here's what we've gone with. Logan, we had Rigby and Coeur d'Alene, Twin Falls versus Sandpoint, Kimberly versus Fruitland, New Plymouth versus Firth, Oakley versus Grace, and Lakeside versus Coeur de Christ. We all took Lakeside. We all took Firth. We all took Kimberly. Logan, you were the only guy that picked Twin Falls.
Yeah, I just think that last year they surprised some people, and I picked against them. And I don't want to do that again, honestly. I think I think Brandon, you were the only one to pick them. I believe it was that Minico game, and you picked them, and it was embarrassing for me. I don't know. I just think they're a good team again this year. They return a lot of pieces, and I think they're hungry. They won the conference, but didn't get as far in the playoffs as they'd like. So that's why I'm going with Twin Falls.
Ryan, you and I both took Grace. Logan took Oakley. What made you go with Grace?
I think just based on returning talent with Grace, that's basically what's hinging everything on. Oakley's a kind of an unknown question mark right now. I'm sure that they're going to have a fine season, but I think that Grace just gets the edge right now based on returning talent.
And I literally live in Coeur d'Alene, and I did not pick Coeur d'Alene High. So I took Rigby with all of that returning talent. I think they bring enough pieces back on defense, especially, whereas Coeur d'Alene's got to replace a lot on that side of the ball. But those are our pick 6 picks.
I always hate the first week picks because we just don't know. Like, we could come out and all of a sudden, like you said, Ryan, like Coeur de Christ could be the best team we've ever seen play football, and we just don't know it. It's just and same thing with Fruitland. Like, maybe Fruitland comes out with they'll have a freshman. They have potentially he played in the Idaho Bowl, a freshman quarterback competing with Vidlac for that starting job. So I don't know how that's going to shake out, but maybe they come out and they beat Kimberly, and all of a sudden everything we just said about Homedale and Weiser all goes out the window. And so it's always tough because we're basing it. Whenever the top 25 polls come out in college football, right? Everybody's like, oh, everybody's putting Miami in the top 25 just because of their name. And, that's part of the reason, even us, when we make a pick, sometimes it's based on what we saw last year. So we could be totally wrong, but it should be fun to see what happens this week.
Yeah. If you got Coeur de Christ tape, I'm all eyes right now. Send it to me.
I went to their practice last week, and they were practicing on a field that didn't have any lines or anything. And Coach Clemens said, "Yep, this is our equipment room," and he pointed to the back of his pickup truck with all the gear that was in it. So it'll be interesting. It'll be fun for sure. You might be wondering, hey, where's everybody else's picks? going to have to tune into our social media accounts, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And we'll have our picks up on Friday before the games all take place. So that's the IdahoSports.com pick 6. All right. Big thanks to everybody for tuning in here to Gem State Game Day. This one went super long. Next week, it'll be probably around an hour. We won't have as much to talk about in terms of season previews. It's just going to be the headlines and the matchups. Big thanks to Logan and Ryan for hopping on and doing this, guys. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Yeah, it was fun. Ready for football to start.
Big thanks to our guests as well. Meridian High senior quarterback Zeke Martinez and Butte County head coach Sam Thorngren. Enjoy the games this weekend, everybody. Travel safe, and we'll see you back here next Thursday. These will air every Thursday morning on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, and X account. And so until then, for Ryan Scaggs and Logan Green, I'm Brandon Baney. Thanks for tuning in to Gem State Game Day on IdahoSports.com.